Welcome back to my channel. I'm Kelly and you found me here on Pick and Stitches, and today we're going to be completing our Liberty Box quilt. This is a quilt box that came out from Fat Quarter Shop. They do these about once a quarter for the special times a year. This was the 4th of July one. They do one in October, another one in December, and then maybe February, I think. Anyways, they have some fun boxes that come out every month, but these are kind of special limited edition ones. And we've sewed everything out last week except for our final border. And then I'm going to show you what I'm going to do for my backing and binding, and additionally what I'm going to do to use up some of my extra scraps, because I did have some fabric left over, and you know me, I can't just throw it all in the stash. So I also have some fun ideas on what we can do for our label, so stick around and let's check it out. Hey guys, so I decided what I'm going to do for our fun backing with all of our leftover pieces. I'm going to take these leftover 6.5 inch blocks, and I'm going to just sew them together in an alternating fashion, and I'll show the rest of those with you guys in a minute. And then I decided for my label, I'm going to do something fun, and I went ahead and cut off 4 more triangles. We're going to make 1 more pinwheel for the back, and so I had enough of this star pattern, or excuse me, star fabric left, and then this was just a scrap I pulled out of my top drawer of that Bella Solid that I love to use, and I'm just going to put them right sides together and stitch them out just like we did for our pinwheels that are on the front side. And I'm probably not even going to bother to trim this at all. I'm just going to take it over there and sew it like this, and then I will trim it off when I do my trimming. Okay, so I kind of started to do this off camera, but I wanted to show you guys. I'm just going to sew all of my extra pieces together alternating. And I had one short of this pattern, I think probably because on the front of the quilt it just used one more of this particular one, so I made one additional one so I'd have an equal number. And I'm just going to flip them over. I've already got them in an alternating fashion, and I'm going to just stitch them all together. And I want to make sure that they're going opposite. As I'm stitching them, I'm just rotating it if they need to be rotated. Okay, so I will go press this open, and that's going to be our kind of center accent stripe on the back. And then we've got our last pinwheel that we're going to sew up, and I'm just going to sew these diagonal lines quickly. Stitch length so that it'll be easy to tear. Kind of funny, 4 goes super fast now compared to making all of those. Okay, so just like we did in that last video, I'm going to take this over to the cutting station, and I'm going to cut all the way around it. Then I'm going to cut those apart, and then I'm going to cut the diagonals, and I'm going to press to the dark. I'm going to press to the dark like I did at the end of the quilt because I'm lazy and I don't want to press it open. Okay, so just like we did when we made it the last time, we're going to snip our 4 corners. Okay, so now I'm just going to make my same pinwheel shape like I did last time. Make sure that my sides are going to nest. I pressed it so flat they almost don't want to nest. Isn't that funny? Okay. Turn my stitch length back up. I thought I'd turn that. Okay. Yep, that'll be right. Okay. Okay, we'll press this. Okay, since I didn't chain those, I am going to double check, make sure I have them in the right orientation. And then I'm going to nest them. Okay, and so I decided that this block is going to be like our Spring Flags quilt that came into Fat Quarter Shop. That light is terrible, earlier this year. So I'm going to be doing it just like one of these pinwheels. I will have to take a photo for you guys. That is terrible light. I don't know where all my light is today. So we're going to do it just like it was on this quilt pattern that we got earlier this year. We're going to do this pinwheel. So, and if you didn't have that subscription box, I bet you can look at the 3 pieces I'm about to sew together and kind of get a guesstimate. So I'm going to just sew that center kind of pinwheel stick. And I'm going to finger press it just to save a little time. And sew the other side. Okay, so we'll go press this open. Okay, so I've got my pinwheel, I've got my pinwheel stick, and then I'm going to just sew those together. Don't look at my terrible pressing on this block. I'm in a hurry. Okay. Okay, and I will press that open, and then we're going to use this as part of our label block. Okay, and don't forget, if you are 100% sewing this along with me from the first video, I did not sew on that additional white border. So I'm doing that right now just to get everything finished up. So I didn't want to not include that video so that you guys might skip the step and then be like, what's going on? Why is my quilt so small? So that 5.5-inch border all the way around. Okay, so now I'm going to trim it up and press it and do the last 2 sides. Okay, so I've decided to do one of these labels as my label on the back this time. I think I'm going to do this Made in America. Okay, so I'm going to iron that on to the center of my white background just like I did before to make sure none of my colors bleed through. And now I'm going to give it a precise trim for that 1/4 inch. I'm going to line up with that line because clearly I didn't even bother to put it on there square because I knew I was going to trim this down. Okay, so I think that would make a nice border for this one. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch this on to all 4 sides just a little bit. I don't need a ton. I'll probably just cut like, I don't know, maybe, let's do 2 inches on each side. I'm going to do these first 2 and that way I know the right length. Okay, so I sewed my first 2 sides on and I pressed that open, and now I'm going to sew a strip across the top and the bottom. Okay, so I have ironed all the way around and cut it down to size, and now I'm going to just stitch it onto the bottom. So this is 6.5 inches wide, which is how wide our block is, and I'm going to add this to the bottom as an accent. then I will go press it. Okay guys, and I'm not totally sure we're going to love this, but we're going to give it a try. I'm going to frame this out like it is a block, and then I'm going to fold the ends under and press them, and then when I put it on the back, I'm going to top stitch it. But this will just give it a nice dark blue border around the outside edge. I am going to be doing my backing in that light blue dot that I used on the front, so it'll have some contrast, but it won't be like a whole new introduction pattern. All right, so as per usual, I did not pre-cut those, so I've got some ends to cut off, and then I'll press it and we'll hit the last two sides. Okay, so I've pressed those open, and now I'm going to do the top and the bottom. Now I did not cut that square at all, so I'm going to be careful when I lay it over here to make sure it overlaps. All right, we'll trim it and press it up, see what we think. Okay guys, that is the finished block. Sorry, it is huge. I probably should have scaled that down and gone to about a 50%, but you know what? It's done, and I'm going to see how it looks on the back of the quilt once I quilt everything out before I make that final decision. Okay, so I want to have my backing strip offset in the middle, not offset, obviously, not in the middle, of the back of the quilt. So I have taken my length of fabric and I have just cut it to about, I don't know, 16 inches or so, and I'm going to sew my strip on. Let's see, it's going to go this way. And I'm just going to sew it all the way down. Okay, so now I'm going to take my other side of my backing fabric, sew it on, and press everybody open. Okay, so now I have everything quilted, and I'm pretty pleased with the way that the quilting came out. And on the back, we've got our fun, exciting strip, and then I've trimmed everything down. Now on this, you see this block at the top is a little bit shorter, and this block at the bottom is a little bit shorter as well, because I didn't want to have to do the math to make them all exactly perfect and worry about how it was going to line up on the long arm. So now that that's all done, okay, and I thought I would use this as my binding. So when you're cutting your binding, if you're doing one that's a stripe, I want to make sure that I'm going to cut my strips the other direction, because I want my stripes to go, and I'm not going to worry about trying to do it on the bias, but you could definitely do that as well. I'm going to have mine look like that around the edge. Let me see if I can flip it around. I may not be cool enough. And then like this. So it just gives you a way to kind of audition your pieces so you know if you're going to like that color scheme together. So I'm going to go ahead and get ready and cut these out. Let me set this aside So whenever you're working with plaids or stripes, it is important that you keep your lines running the right direction. Some plaids and stripes as well can be a little bit not 100% symmetrical, and that's actually easier to work with. But if it's a really straight line plaid or really straight line stripe, you want to make sure that you're really perpendicular to it. Okay, and I just got this new ruler at the quilt show this weekend, and I think I'm really going to like it. But this is kind of my first time out of the gate. So after I've had it for a little while, I will go ahead and give you guys a review. But it's too new to me to do that yet. Okay. So I did press this. I pre-washed it because it's red and white, and red always kind of scares me. So it's been pressed, and I've got my stripes nice and straight. And then I'm just going to square this up to start. And what I want to make sure is that I'm perpendicular with a lot of the lines. So if a lot of my lines are showing up on these different variations on the ruler and they don't look like they're staying square, then I'm going to jump into my fabric, maybe refold it and double check and make sure that I like where everything's coming together. Okay, so I kind of cleaned that up a lot, but I wanted to really make sure that I got square. I like to cut 2.5-inch strips for my binding, and this ruler is 5, so I know if I cut this exactly, I'm going to have 2. Okay, and then I'm going to take my ruler and set it the other direction and just cut off my selvages. And again, I'm really trying to make sure that I'm nice and perpendicular, that all my lines feel like they're pretty straight, because that's how I want this border to look. All right, and after you've got enough strips cut, then we'll just sew those together and then press them in half, and I will meet you back here. Okay, so now we have all our strips. All my ends are cut off, and I'm just going to kind of chain piece these. I like to set them one at a time, fold it in half, and we're going to sew right sides together. So this first one I'm just going to kind of tuck out of the way, and then on my next one I'm going to be folded in half until I unfold it on accident. So then my next one is just going to sit right on top of it. Now I am going to make sure that these are nice and square, because I do want those stripes to line up. And if you really wanted to get specific about it, you could pin these so that the stripes will continue the pattern and not, so offset. There we go. Because these are about the same size, so that means that this is not going to be a regular seam. It's more about kind of fussy planning that binding. So I think this is going to be a cute binding, but it is going to take a little bit longer to line all those up where I want them. Okay, so after that's pinned, I'm just going to sew it down the row, and I'm going to stay 1/4 inch from this upper fabric just to make sure I have a wide enough seam. And then I'm going to take the end that was on top, that was part of that strip, and just lay it across my machine for the next binding strip. And I'm going to pick up my next strip, fold this back kind of out of the way, and off we go again. I just dropped a pin on the floor, and these pin heads are so super small. Sometimes I have to recruit my daughter to help me find them. We jokingly said her nickname should be Hawkeyes, because that girl can see anything. Okay, so now we'll take it over to our pressing station and we will press them all. I'm probably going to go ahead and press them open so that they'll lay nice and flat. And any of these that are a little bit larger, just because we were trying to line up those stripes, I will go ahead and trim down so they're closer to 1/4 inch. Okay, so I've laid them all out. I'm going to go ahead and set my seams and then press them open. So then as they're coming across my board, once I start pressing them in half, I'm going to make sure those seams press open. And that way I'm kind of doing 2 birds and 1 stone. So I'm just going to set it right side down on my on my ironing board. And I'm going to press it in half. And I'll meet you back here when it's all done. Okay, now everything is pressed in our everything on our binding is pressed in half. I'm just going to roll it up and get it lined up on the machine. Okay, so after one of my last videos, one of my viewers suggested that I try putting my binding up here to unroll it. So we're going to give it a try. That's part of what I really enjoy about this whole community setup is we get to share tips and tricks both directions. So usually I put it down here and I just have it unwind from behind my extension table leg. I know what that word is. I'll get there. All right, so I'm just going to stitch this on. I like to come from the back first. Some people like to sew it on the front first. I do machine bind my quilts front and back. I just don't have time for hand binding or hand stitching. So this is the method that works for me. There's a ton of different methods out there, and please feel free to use the one that works best for you. Stitch length is at 2. All right, off we go. So I've left myself a tail so I have some room. In fact, I'm going to throw a pin over here so I remember to stop sewing when I get around. Because I usually end up, that's too long. It's all right. Now this is going to give me a chance also to audition what color thread I want to add on the top stitch when I flip it over, because when I flip it over I am going to top stitch right across the front of it. So I'm probably going to switch halfway through from this white thread to a red thread just so I can see it, because this side won't really matter. So now I've gone all the way around. I do have to say, when I put my binding here, it works out well, but Joy Dixon was the one who gave me this tip on one of my other videos, and thank you so much, Joy, for that tip, because it is awesome. It is even easier than having it down here, and it just unrolled perfectly. So thank you for that tip, Miss Joy. All right, so now I'm going to take this over, and actually I'll just scooch that out of the way. And I left myself quite a bit more room than I usually do. So what I'm going to do is take my 2 pieces of binding, and I want to make sure that they're laying nice and flat, which I'm not doing a fantastic job of because I'm trying to show you guys. Give me a second. I'll be right back. Let me lay this out in a more appropriate manner. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to take my other side of my binding, and I'm just going to lay them until they overlap. Make sure my quilt is nice and flat because I don't want to run out of room. And then I'm just going to overlap it by 1/4 of an inch. And I know it's scary, but if you leave too much, it's really hard to deal with. So this stripe may not line up at all, and I'm okay with that. So then I'm going to take these, kind of let this get a wrinkle in it so that I have more room to work with. Let's see. Let's see if I can pin this one so it looks nice as well. On the stripes. All right, so I'm going to sew those 2 ends of the binding together. I'm going to go ahead and leave this red thread in. I did give that a try, just so I can kind of audition it and see which one we like better for our binding. All right. Okay, so we'll just line it up. And then I will finger press it open. And just like that, you guys, we're going to have finished one side of our binding. Guess I must have a leg. Yep. That's why it teeters. Okay, so now I will go to the pressing table and I'm going to press these corners open, and I will meet you back here. Okay, so we're all pressed and ready to go. Now I'm going to sew right as close to that edge as I can, working to make sure that I'm not hitting this stitch line from the other side. there we have it, our finished border binding, all set and ready to go. So here it is from the back, and I will get this up on the design wall. Okay guys, we've got our entire backing finished, and now we've got our border block finished. And I'm thinking for our label block, I don't know what I'm thinking. I was actually thinking that it was going to go, is that on camera, somewhere kind of in that general vicinity. So let's switch sides. Stand out of the way. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm going to tinker with it, see which way we like it. Okay, so this is our side over here with the stripe, and I'm going to go all the way into this other corner, and I'm just going to place my pinwheel block, my label block, a couple inches out of the corner on both sides. So you can absolutely hand sew this on, but that is not the route that I'm going to take. So I'm going to throw a couple pins in it, and I'm going to run a top stitch all the way around it. And I'm probably going to do the same color that I quilted it in on the top, and then on this one just a navy to match this block. And we will be finished with this one. And I just checked on the Fat Quarter Shop's tracking, and it still says that my June box is supposed to be delivered for the sew sampler today. So I would like to wrap this one up and be ready for the next one. Been a busy month with the extra Liberty box and then us being out of town. All right, so I'm going to take this over to the machine and top stitch it down. Okay guys, as I was getting ready to stitch this down, I started looking at my pattern from the front, and I'm kind of being lazy. I know these lines are going to end up being very straight up and down, and I think if I get this to where it's kind of centered over these, I'm going to be pretty happy with it. So I'm going to look for getting about that distance on each side. So that's 25 inches. So that's almost 2 inches in. And this is a little over 2 inches in. So let's see. Because if I do that, that's probably my best option. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is try to line it up on the flip side so that it's going to be where I start to get this pattern and you can't see as much of my quilting. And it probably really doesn't matter that much, but I'm trying to, you know, let the quilting shine a little bit. So I'm 4 inches in from the binding and 4 inches in from the binding. So I'm just going to flip it over, and I'm going to go 4 inches in on either corner and pin it again. All right, that looks about right. All right. So sorry for the indecision there. I think either of the placements will probably look fine. And if you're hand stitching this on, then you don't even have to worry about that. But I know those straight lines are going to be kind of obvious to me, not terrible, but this is a rather large one. So I wanted to minimize how visible it is. And I will definitely get you guys some pictures at the end so you can see that for yourself. All right, let's move over to the machine. Okay, so now I'm just going to top stitch around all 4 sides. I've got that same clover tool out again because I've got a little bit of this corner that's poking out. So I'm going to tuck that in after I kind of get started stitching down this side. I'm going to drop my stitch length to about a 1.5. Turn my machine on, that'll help. Okay, so this little corner, as I was pressing it under, is just wanting to poke out the tiniest bit, so I'm just going to hold it down. And because I am living dangerously, I'm sewing with a really light thread on the bottom and a really dark thread on the top. So I just want to make sure that that line's not looking bad and it looks okay. And if you don't have enough throat space for that, you could always backstitch in that corner and then flip your machine around and sew it back from this corner to the top. But I have enough room to kind of just squish it through there. Okay guys, so there we have it. Our finished block on the back for accent with our label. I will get this up on the design wall so you can see it. Okay guys, so here's how the whole backing turned out. I think it ended up super cute. And I will flip it over so y'all can see the front. Okay guys, that's a wrap on our Liberty box quilt. I hope you've enjoyed putting this one together with me. I definitely had fun with it. The Fat Quarter Shop always comes out with some of the best kits, and I really enjoy sewing along with you guys. Thanks again, Joy, for that tip. It definitely helped. It certainly works to put your binding on the bottom when you're sewing around the foot like I've always done, but it was so much easier when I moved it to the top. It just unspooled beautifully. So I appreciate that feedback. And if you like watching these unboxing videos, like and subscribe to my channel. It helps me out so much. And I am counting it down for the postman. We should be getting our next sew sampler box today. So that video should be coming down the pipeline with what's in the box and what we're going to do with it. And I can't wait to share it with you guys too. We'll see you next time.